Well, CBS News polling shows young people who are registered to vote are much less likely to head to the polls in November than older people. That said, voters under the age of 30 favor President Biden by more than 20 points. Campaign reporter Nydia Cavazos spoke to young voters across the political spectrum in the battleground state of Arizona about issues that are top of mind.
Abortion rights, women's rights, a lot of different topics that are being challenged today.
I definitely have strong opinions about abortions. I think that women should be allowed to have abortions. It's their body. They can choose what they do.
Honestly, I haven't made up my mind. I think both of them aren't very the best options for our country.
For more on this, Carolyn DeWitt joins us now. She is the president and executive director of Rock the Vote, a nonpartisan nonprofit that will work to get young people to the polls. And Caroline, you can see clearly that you have a major task ahead of you, getting young people to the polls. It's striking because you do see a lot more of this, even our polling bears this out, that young people are not motivated this election cycle to get to the polls. But what people struggle to understand, I guess, is if you don't vote, then you don't get to complain about the outcome if the other people get out there and vote. But that's what they're going to do eventually, if history is a sign of repeating itself.
Well, if history is a sign of repeating itself, the other thing to remember is one of the most important things that we talk about when talking about young voters and comparing their registration and turnout rates to older voters is that they're new voters. They're new to the process. It's not universal. It's different state to state, and it's archaic compared to their modern and digital lives. And this is not unique to this generation, right? We've seen it with past generations. And in addition, we've seen, since this generation broke turnout records in 2018 and 2020, we've seen a wave of laws aimed at suppressing them. Since 2020, we've seen 17 states pass new or more restrictive voter ID laws that specifically target younger voters. So it's actually harder for younger voters. They're disproportionately affected by these laws.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting about the polling is that it indicated that by and large, young people are not really, I'll use a young people term, they're not really feeling the candidates, right? And so as a result, they are less likely to actually go to the polls versus older voters who still might have the same feeling about, their choices, but they're still going to vote. So I presume that it's the issues that's going to drive them. If they don't like the candidates, then it's got to be the issues. So what are the critical issues that will be motivating young people to head to the polls in November?
Yeah, absolutely. Young voters are not single issue voters. They see the complexity of the issues. We obviously, the poll recognized economy. And when you drill that down for young people, it's the cost of living, student debt, cost of housing, good paying jobs and healthcare. Gun violence has really affected the youth generation, and we saw them really galvanized in 2018. Climate change and the issues related to race and diversity. When you break those down, it's civil rights, criminal justice reform, and police brutality. I think the reality is young people feel, and frankly, rightly so, that the older generation has created a world that is more dangerous by not addressing a lot of these issues urgently and boldly. And now they're really at critical tipping points that are threatening our existence. This generation sees that they're going to be the ones dealing with the consequences of not addressing climate change, of not addressing gun violence, of not addressing racism. And they're the ones that know that they're going to have to not only deal with the consequences, but they're going to need to solve for these issues. So it's very daunting, and they're frustrated.
Right, which is why this trend is troubling to so many people, because they don't like these policies, and they have really big interest in a wide variety of policies that are going to affect them and their children later in life. And yet they're letting their parents and their grandparents go to the polls and vote these candidates in. And our polling shows only 34% of registered voters ages 18 to 29 are thinking a lot about the presidential race. So I don't know how else to motivate young people than by saying, these are the things that you care about. The people who are in office now don't care about those things because they were voted in by your grandparents and parents. So to get people to think about the issues you care about, you got to get there out and vote. But you could probably do a better job of energizing them than I can, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, I mean, I think one, and you touched on this in the interview of the young voters, is that I do think that they're going to be, it's going to come down to issues, right? We know access to abortion is among the top issues for young people, particularly, but not exclusively, young women. Recent years, we've seen young voters show up when abortion was on the ballot in states like Kansas and Ohio, and in critical races like the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin. And we know in as many as 11 states, there's going to likely be abortion on the ballot as ballot measures this year. Arizona, Florida, Maryland, not insignificant states here. And I anticipate that we'll see a lot of galvanized youth very energized in these states, but also in states where there is a clear difference between the candidates on the issues. I think the other important thing that we often do is there's so much focus on the top of the ticket, meaning the presidential, right? The presidential candidates. And we know that the young voters want to see more diversity. And so we really have to work to get through to them to make sure that they understand the importance of down ballot races, particularly at this time.
All right, Carolyn DeWitt, thank you very much.
Thank you.